Good morning. My name is Wes MacLaggan. I lead marketing for Marin Software. Welcome to our webinar, From Performance to Precision, 5 Tips for Modern Marketers. Before we get started, I want to tell you a quick blurb about Marin. We make a SaaS platform that helps brands and agencies maximize the return of their paid advertising investment across search, social, e-commerce, and app advertising. Our suite of tools uses the latest AI to help you analyze, automate, and optimize your campaigns across dozens of ad platforms. Our goal is simple. We help you sell more with less effort. I'm joined today by Nikhil Lai from Forrester. Forrester is a leading global market research company that helps organizations exceed customer demands and excel with technology. They help businesses and technology leaders use customer obsession to accelerate growth.
Thanks, Wes. Oh, sorry.
No, welcome. Before we dive in, I'm going to tell a little story to set the context for us today. I used to live in New England, and if you've driven around the back roads of New England, invariably you're going to run into one of these older water wheels. They're really pretty, and they've probably been transformed into a cool restaurant or something at this point, but I never really thought about what used to be inside them. And this is an example of what they used to look like. I don't think that was the same factory we just saw, but it's kind of amazing. Not at all what I expected, but it makes sense. Before there was electricity, the water wheel was the heart of the factory. It drove this series of belts and pulleys that brought the machinery to life. An incredible feat of engineering, but it had its limitations. You definitely did not want to get your sleeve caught in one of those belts. There wasn't really an off switch. So electricity came along, promising to revolutionize how we worked. The factories, at first, they just simply swapped out their water wheel for a big electric engine. It was a straightforward upgrade. It was more efficient, more reliable, but fundamentally the same centralized power source driving those same belts and pulleys. The true breakthrough in productivity and efficiency came when the factories realized that they didn't need to rely on a single massive engine. Instead, they could put smaller motors directly at each machine. This decentralization transformed factory layouts. It eliminated this complex system of belts and pulleys, giving the factories more flexibility and control. By moving to smaller, localized motors, these factories were able to change their workflows, drastically improve safety, reduce maintenance cost, and dramatically increase their output. This was the true shift that electricity provided, showing the power of rethinking how we apply new technologies rather than just replacing the old ones. Today, we're in a similar era of transformation with digital marketing. Just as those early factories learned to harness the full power of electricity, we must also embrace innovative strategies and technologies that AI is providing that can help us to optimize and revolutionize the way we manage our marketing efforts. And so that's what we mean when we say from performance to precision. So today, Nikhil is going to provide some additional context on the way this already fast-changing industry continues to evolve. And then I'm going to provide some specific tips on how we can think about putting the motor directly on the machine. So with that, let me hand it off to Nikhil.
Thanks, Wes, for having me and to the broader Marin team for putting this together. So as Wes mentioned, I'm from Forrester. We do research and we give advice. And specifically at Forrester, my role is to analyze performance marketing, apprehend what that concept means now that every channel parades as performance, and give advice about best practices for search and social and TV and creative and buying DSPs. So if you want to talk about ad tech or performance marketing, just drop me a line and would love to chat. So I'm going to highlight 3 big challenges that I hear about constantly from the marketers that I speak to. I'll bring the voice of our customers to bear on this conversation with the data that we have. The first challenge is that of fragmentation, which comes in 2 flavors. One is the fragmentation of consumption across tons of channels and devices, ever more, it seems. And the other is the fragmentation of the ad tech stack in pursuit of addressability, which turns marketers into system integrators. The second big challenge is measurement, which is made even more challenging by the ubiquity of performance media channels and by what we call data deprecation. I'll talk about what that means in a sec. And the third big challenge is AI, which presents as many risks as it does opportunities and really alters the way that all of us on this call are going to interact with paid and earned media. So to get into fragmentation more specifically, if you look at all of these answers to the question we just asked a few months ago, what are your biggest challenges with marketing? Whether it's creating a single view of the customer, managing data quality, personalization, getting customer insights, all of these challenges stem from the fragmentation of consumption across all these channels and devices. So our latest consumer technographics survey shows that on average, US online adults are using 3 devices, such as smartphones and wearables, per day, and more than 4 channels, from instant message to apps to browsers to navigate daily life. So it's really hard to reach the right person with the right message at the right time as their attention gets spread thin across tons of different ecosystems. And then on the ad tech stack side, I hear from marketers spreading dollars across tens of different platforms to try to be omni-channel. That ends up straining workflows and complicating measurement. I was speaking to the SVP of media at a big agency the other week, and she was saying that big brands are now asking her teams to spread their investments across 30 different platforms in some cases. So again, in the pursuit of being omni-channel, we're causing a lot of collateral damage. And the cause and effect of fragmentation that I'm seeing is really this non-linear customer life cycle. So, we're all trained as marketers to master a linear funnel, but consumers defy that every second of every day. Take my wife, for example. She was just telling me about shopping for a new shampoo after learning from a friend that the product she's been using for years is actually drying out her hair. So she began this journey with a flurry of searches. And she found out that she needs hypoallergenic, non-toxic products. All right. Then she narrowed her search to a handful of promising brands. That's pretty predictable funnel behavior, right? From awareness to consideration. Not quite. Then she broadened her search again, looking for shampoo without aluminum or without non-toxic ingredients. And then her consideration set is expanding and contracting and expanding and contracting. She's watching videos, she's searching. It took her 2 months to do all this research, and she was more undecided than ever. So she explored a variety of brands for a couple months, then was ultimately a retailer's loyalty program that won her over, offering her an incentive for her birthday. And just yesterday, she searched for that retailer's locations. So that's what's actually happening across the internet and offline. And as marketers, and that makes it so difficult for us to know who's in market for what we're selling, where they are, how they want to be addressed, what the creative should look like, what the context should look like. That's really the challenge of fragmentation. So to get into measurement a bit, the challenges that CMOs have with measurement, I hear from them, leads them to undersell the true value of marketing. They're struggling to paint a holistic picture of how awareness impacts consideration, how out-of-home impacts mobile, how TV impacts branded search. Only 12% of CMOs in our latest quarterly survey said that their measurement is continuous, effective, proactive, and automated. There's a lot of room for improvement. And more specifically, these are the 5 big challenges with measurement. It comes back to data quality. It's about restrictions on the use of third-party data, which I'll talk about as data deprecation. It's about data materializing too fast for marketers to keep up with, right? So it's the velocity and the quantity of data that's increasing every single second of every day. That's really the challenge. And this is happening against this backdrop of CMOs under pressure from finance to create financial value from advertising and deliver profitable ROAS. We asked CFOs, whether they believe that marketing investments should be protected during a downturn. Close to half said no, which is really ominous now that we're still living in this era of sort of perpetual macroeconomic uncertainty. The other big challenge with measurement that I hear about is that offline channels, audio, terrestrial radio, TV, out of home, they have these impression-based currencies of CPM. And the online channels are being held accountable to value-based currencies, cost per acquisition, cost per install. So then there are multiple sources of truth. And that makes cross-channel measurement difficult. This multi-currency reality, I think, reflects the tension between marketers' need for accountability and scalability out of their media. It also blinds marketers to the halo effects that an offline exposure is having online, that an exposure to out of home is having on mobile, for example, or an exposure to TV is having on branded search. So that's the mess of measurement, made increasingly difficult by what I'm calling data deprecation. So last year I went out and asked about 150 CMOs, what's your biggest priority this year, so that I can write research according to that. About a quarter said adapting our data strategy to signal loss. This year I asked the same question, the same surveys, close to half of respondents saying that that is their biggest strategy. And they said, oh, it's because Google's going to end their third-party cookies in Chrome this year. And Google has turned into the boy who cried wolf, and who knows if they'll ever end them. But that's not the point. The point here is that consumers are demanding more engaging advertising without having to give up more personally identifiable information. This is really a story about consumers putting up ad blockers with increasing frequency, asking not to be tracked, clearing their browsing histories, emptying cookie caches. It's about consumers' dissatisfaction with audience targeting status quo. It's not about whether or not Google's going to deprecate third-party cookies. So it's about consumers, Apple acting as a de facto regulator, as well as local, state, federal, international regulators limiting access, and then walled gardens, who, as they flourish, inevitably dim signals across the open internet because they gate so much data to themselves. So those are some of the challenges I'm hearing about measurement. And finally, AI. Maybe counterintuitive to see this in a section about challenges, but this offers as many risks as it does rewards. There's a risk of misinformation, the risk of hallucination, the risk of just bad advertising. But then the upside is tremendous. It's more speed, deeper insights, potentially more innovation. And so Gen AI has enabled advertisers to play a more active role in deploying and curating AI throughout the marketing process. AI for decades was functioning beneath the surface of the ad tech that you use. Now it's come to the surface and it's able to be handled. It's more malleable to you than it ever has been before. So you must decide how to make the most of this, and also how to spend the newfound bandwidth that you've gained. Again, AI impacts the entire process, from big ideas to design, production, optimization, trafficking, back into big ideas. It accelerates copywriting, image and video creation, and pattern detection. I was speaking to a shoe brand, a sneaker brand, who said that they were able to reshoot tens of thousands of products in new scenes in minutes, which they then attributed to close to 28% reduction in cost per acquisition. They're able to identify winning variables a lot quicker than they were before, and then scale those winning variables given the lower barrier to entry of content creation. Second, predictive AI has been helping you choose which audiences, creatives, bids are likely to perform for decades. But the novelty now is that Gen AI allows you to have a conversation with the results of those predictions. So you can query your own auction results, for example, to optimize bids, or query a database of creative intelligence that you're building to identify winning variables. There are lots of services out there that can help you mine your own data for voice of customer and for uncommon insights that have been trapped in your own data for years. And third, this breaks the fourth wall between brands and consumers. It brings consumers into the process of ad creative, allows them to co-create advertising with you. So Burger King, for example, had this contest a couple months ago when they invited consumers to submit text prompts about burger toppings that Grillium, Burger King's Gen AI-powered assistant, turned into viral imagery. Intuit was briefing me on their AI-generated aura readings, avocados from Mexico, AI-generated guacamole recipes. This is novel, it's shiny, but it also fundamentally changes the value exchange between brands and consumers. So think critically about the speed, innovation, and insights that this enables. So that's happening at a macro level across the advertising process. Here's what's happening specifically in search. So on the screen here, you'll see a demo of Google's AI overviews. This is the conversational search experience that you've probably heard about so much in the news. And just to be clear, Gen AI is not going to kill Google, but it's going to forever change how we engage with search engines. It's not just a story about Google. Amazon, Microsoft, TikTok have integrated Gen AI into their own search engines, sparking an arms race for the future of search. By the end of this year, I predict that search engines are going to be transacted on impressions, not on clicks. So zero-click searches are going to rise, as you can see from this demo. You don't need to click through to get the information you need. And Google's already shown its hand. They've shifted from a per click to a per impression rev share structure for publishers. Other search engines are going to follow suit. Soon, you are going to be bidding on impression-based outcomes throughout the funnel for search. Second thing, search becomes a lot more visual, right? So it used to be 10 blue links. Now it's visual, it's interactive, it's social in a way. The new filters that Google and Bing are adding to bring TikTok and Reddit videos onto the SERP. Bing has this visual search feature, which leverages GPT-4 to help users upload images and prompt Bing to answer questions about them. 90% of the information transmitted to our brains is visual. So this is a logical extension of that human behavior. And finally, overall click volume is going to decline, but the few clicks that remain are going to occur low in the funnel. They're going to be very efficient. So conversion rates are going to actually get better. And as you can see, Google is dynamically personalizing this page based on the natural language prompt that you submitted, not based on keywords. So we're moving from a world of keywords, ranking, average position, to a world of natural language and conversational impressions. But 15% of searches every day on Google are net new. I expect that percentage to rise a lot as conversational search lengthens the tail of queries and widens the top of the funnel. So that's a bit about what's happening
Hey,
in
Nikhil,
search.
sorry
Yeah,
to
sure.
interrupt. I just wanted to ask a question about
Sure.
something you just said there. You said click volume, overall click volume is going down. Are you referring to clicks from Google to, a brand's site because the question is going to get answered by the AI and
Yes.
you've got zero click engagement?
Exactly. So I think that organic traffic is going to fall as a share of overall traffic. And if you're goaling your organic search team on organic traffic, it's going to look like SEO is totally ineffective.
Got it. And the other dynamic that you've got going on there potentially is consumer behavior changing around
Right.
search. You mentioned some of the other publishers and how Google is evolving here, but do you see with a different experience with a expectation of more visual content, are consumers searching to shifting their searches to, TikTok, for example?
Definitely.
And how should advertisers think about that shift in consumer behavior?
Yeah. So two things. Yes, consumers are shifting behavior. We're seeing, I asked about 2,200 consumers a few weeks ago about where they start. There's where they start different types of searches. Product searches, more than half are starting on Amazon.com directly. Informational queries about tourism, for example, best Italian restaurants in San Francisco, whatever, that's starting on TikTok. And so behavior is definitely shifting. And to adapt to that, you need to get a clear understanding of who your customers are, deduplicate all the identifiers for them and figure out exactly, who Wes is, not just where he lives and what his address is, but like how he wants to be addressed online and offline, and then map and sequence your exposures to that portrait of addressability or to that journey that you're able to actually map out that can be individualized and personalized. And so honestly, Wes, I think that all these challenges are blessings in disguise. This is going to empower all of us on the call to think more critically and more empathetically about how we deliver value to our audiences rather than extracting value from them, and how we actually repair the value exchange between brand and consumer, which is the original promise of advertising.
I love that framing of delivering value, not extracting
Yep.
value from our customers. That should be a goal that we all have.
Yep.
That's great.
Great. So now I'll turn it over to you for a few tips about how to actually make all of these ideals reality.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Nikhil, thank you so much for the context there. I think I love a couple of things that I wrote down that I love to recap from that. Agencies for big brands having to deal with 30 plus platforms. That's just craziness, fragmentation that we see as well. 50% of the CMOs you're talking to adapting to data loss, worried about how to take advantage of AI at the same time. Well, those are all the kind of things that I want to help provide some tactical tips here in on this next section. So
Great.
let's dive right in. All right. So my goal for this section of the webinar is to give you a roadmap for some specific things you can do to save time and improve your efficiency. I want to cover 5 broad topics that I think we all should be thinking about today. There's a ton of ground to cover, And so what I want to try and do is give you some threads that you can pull on. We'll provide some additional resources that you may want to take a look at to go deeper. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a link that will consolidate everything that I reference today. So let's talk about how we can import better data, how we can bring together this fragmented ecosystem, how we can activate the AI to work on our behalf, how we can automate processes that we really shouldn't be doing manually ourselves, and how we can have better forecasting to improve the return on our marketing investment. First, we'll focus on the data and how important it is to build the right data foundation. As we've all seen with the rise of the LLMs, AI just thrives on data. The more data you feed it, the better the results. The better data you feed it, the better results. Nikhil talked about data deprecation causing signal loss, and that's really important to think about. How do I make up for that? How do I get as much quality data feeding the AI that these ad platforms are using to optimize our accounts? We also need to remember that AI doesn't know good data from bad. It just knows data. So we need to make sure that we're giving it good data to work with and we're hiding the bad data from it. So let's talk about 3 things that we can do to try and make sure that we're giving the best data possible. The first thing that we want to think about is what are we sending to these ad platforms in terms of optimization? You want them making the optimization decisions. And when I say optimization, I'm talking about what ads they're going to serve, smart bidding, how they're going to optimize your performance. You want them making those decisions on actual business value, as close to profit really as you can get. We still see far too many brands who are using those upstream proxies. It's like some of the things you see on the screen here, downloading a white paper, talking to an agent, to optimize their campaigns. Now that's good if that's the best thing you have, but we think you'll see a lot of places in this presentation where there's kind of a spectrum from here's where you start to here's what world-class companies are doing, and your goal is to figure out where you are and think about how you can get to the next level on that spectrum. So, for example, if you're optimizing just to conversions today, can you upgrade and think about optimizing to actual revenue? What amount of revenue those are driving, those conversions are driving? If you're optimizing, if you've got a longer sales cycle, so you don't know the revenue today, or maybe it's hard to even link back, can you model the expected revenue based on what you know about that customer? So their zip code or what product they came in on, product page, can that give you a hint as to what they're likely to be worth so that you can differentiate different type of customers? Taking it one step further, you've got things like customer lifetime value. So, don't just optimize to that single purchase, but know that you've acquired a customer who's going to spend 5x that initial purchase over their lifetime. And so if you can model against that and optimize against that, you're going to be willing to go more aggressively after those customers because they're worth more than just that first impression. Another example would be if you're a brand selling products, physical goods where you've got a cost of goods sold. Should you be optimizing not to the revenue that you're driving, but what about to the gross margin? Each product category has different amounts of money that you make. And so if you can optimize to that reality, you'll be bidding aggressively on your high margin products and maybe not going quite as hard on the lower margin things. So getting that data there is really important. And oftentimes this is coming from downstream systems. And so, there are different ways to bring this data in to reach into your CRM system, sometimes into your ERP, to bring in that downstream and offline data. So Google here is an example. It's got a direct connection to some of these popular CRMs like Salesforce and HubSpot. And so you can go in, and if you've got a longer sales cycle, you've got an opportunity record that moves through, you can link that directly into your Google Ads account, and you can use those as conversion points that you can specify a value. You can use a default value across all the conversions that come in to different stages to give it that better data to optimize against. If you're a consumer brand, this would likely be linking up with your CDP and understanding those things like consumer lifetime value, downstream purchases. You'll hear me say it more than once in this presentation. If this is an area that you need help with, if you are not quite where you want to be in terms of your data integration back to the publishers, that's where Marin comes in. We're here to help, and we'd love to chat. The second opportunity around getting better data and making up for some of the conversion data loss that Nikhil referenced because of data privacy issues is thinking about how do I connect back to individual users to those right users? And the platforms have developed solutions that do this for us. And what they do, the way these things work, is, Google is called enhance conversions, but we see it under a few names on other publishers, is they take PII that you, the advertiser, captures about the user, and they use that to link back to the user. They take that hashed PII, so you send an email address or a phone number, connect that to your conversion. So you have a conversion event with an ID. You upload that back to the publisher in a bulk file. And what they do is they match that with their known users using that PII linkage, and they can connect that conversion event with the interactions that happened, ad interactions that happened for that user, and they can do this across devices, of course. So you get a better percentage of your conversions, which they're able to match back to ad interactions. Google estimates that enhanced conversions recovers about 30% of conversions lost due to some of these private data privacy issues and industry transformations that we're going through. So just another way that you're giving AI a more powerful and accurate signal to use when it's making those optimization decisions. On the Meta side, it's similar, but they use a server-server integration. So they call it Conversion API or CAPI. And basically, it's trying to make up for it's the same information that the Meta pixel would have captured before, the conversion pixel, but it's doing it with a server-server integration to avoid some of the data loss issues. It supports a broad range of events, so you can, manage multiple different conversion types, sending that back over, and it makes that same connection between your user and the ad interactions that they've seen. Better data delivers better results. That's really important to keep in mind. As I said, this is available on all of the different platforms. They each have their own version. And, long story short, you should be using them all. So Meta, it's the Conversions API, TikTok, advanced matching, LinkedIn, and Microsoft, it's enhanced conversions, and Snap, it's advanced conversions. There is a quiz on this at the end of the webinar, so make sure you're keeping track of this. All right, and then the last area, as I said at the outset, the AI doesn't know good data from bad. It just knows data. We had a great recent example that we all just struggled through with the infrastructure provider that pushed a bad bug update that caused chaos worldwide for a lot of different industries. That's probably not data that we want to feed. The results from those periods is not something that we want to feed into the AI, because that's just not going to be representative of typical performance. So whether your site was down, whether there's just tracking inaccuracies, or you've got a special event that just isn't going to be indicative of how well your campaigns are going to perform, we want to skip over that information. Google is one of the ad platforms where you can tell it what dates to exclude. So you see the screenshot here, you can specify which campaigns, what dates, and it's not going to use that in its optimization algorithms. And I'm sure you won't be surprised when I tell you this is something that Marin offers across all of the ad platforms that we support. All right, with that, let's talk about the importance of unifying your data. Nikhil talked about 30 ad platforms that agencies are working across for bigger brands. And before we dive into why it's so important to bring that into one place, let me tell you a quick story about the power of data unification. So there once was this man called Jon Snow. Wait, how'd that get in there? Not that Jon Snow. This guy. So in the 1850s, he was helping to try and solve a massive cholera epidemic in London. And he realized the only way he was going to get this done was with better data. We didn't understand diseases and transmission the way we do today. And so he was trying to unravel this mystery. And he did it by collecting data about the location of the cholera infections. He meticulously mapped all the locations that he was seeing on a map. In this case, it was that you're looking at Soho in London. And it's interesting to see where there were definitely clusters going on, but that didn't really answer the question. It was only when he brought this data together with another set of data. That was the location of the water pumps that were used. And so this is a time before indoor plumbing. So to go get your water, you had to go down to the village, or not village, but the neighborhood water pump. And with this combination of data, what he noticed is that there's a massive cluster of cholera cases around this Broad Street pump. He found that many people who died had drinking water from this pump, even if they had lived a further distance away. And those who didn't drink water from the pump were less likely to get sick. As an interesting aside, there was a brewery down in this neighborhood, and there were no cholera cases amongst the workers, which maybe put some doubt into his theory. But it turns out that the people who worked in the brewery never drank any water. They just drank beer, which was fine. So based on this data, Dr. Snow was able to get the local authorities to turn off that pump. And after the pump handle was removed, the cholera outbreak subsided, which was strong evidence for the hypothesis about contaminated water being the source for the outbreak. So why this story? Well, what we see today is there are far too many brands who have different parts of their program working in silos. In bigger agencies, it's not even uncommon to have different agencies, bigger brands. It's not uncommon for agencies to have different agencies handling, search versus social, or even individual social ad platforms. And, unfortunately, our world is getting more fragmented, not less. And so my challenge to you today is making sure that you figured out a way to bring all this data from these disparate platforms together into one place for holistic decision making. We've put together a great white paper that digs into this topic about how to build your marketing data pipeline. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes at the end. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight were the different levels of data maturity. And again, this is kind of like where you get started through to what world-class companies are doing. It starts at the left here with siloed data. You're probably primarily working in the ad platform campaign managers. So Google Ads, Meta Campaign Manager. You may be exporting stuff into Excel, but these are ad hoc things. They're on their own. The next step up is when you start to bring the data together. You may be doing this in spreadsheets still. This is where data warehouses start to come into play. So you may be bringing it into Snowflake or Google Cloud, and then visualizing, creating those dashboards with Looker, with Tableau, whatever it may be. The next step beyond that is the automated data pipeline. So this is when you are using tools to help with this data collection. So even with data warehouses, sometimes this process is a little bit too manual. You've got platforms that help link up to all your different data sources and bring it in automatically. So, you've got Marin Connect, our offering does that. You've got companies like Funnel, which are helping to provide this. And it's when you start getting to this level that then you can build into levels 4 and 5, which is where the magic happens. Starting to bring automated insights on this data foundation that you built gives you a lot to work with for delivering better results. And then finally, activated optimization. So not just having insights, but having a platform that has all the data in one place, understands what's going on, and then can actually take action on your behalf. And I'll circle back at the end with some of the cool stuff that we're doing in that area. I want to talk about some other options. This isn't just all about Marin, of course. One of the tools out there that a big chunk of the audience here is going to be using is GA4. And there is the ability to provide a unified view into Google Analytics 4 if this is your source of truth. So this is a standard integration and pretty straightforward to connect Google Ads to GA4. But what about other platforms? Well, if you go under settings, you can create a new data source. And there's an option there that you'll see for cost data. And so you take a CSV with your results from another platform, usually at the campaign level. You bring it in, you map the fields appropriately. And what you get in return for that is a output where you can see not just the metrics of what traffic is coming from those campaigns, but the revenue and cost, the revenue is coming from GA4, but the cost associated with those campaigns right there in your report. So it's a cool view. It's powerful, but there are some limitations. You can only go back for the last 90 days. So if you wanted year-over-year analysis and you're not already doing this, you're not going to have that. It's a typically a pretty manual process, and it only doesn't work down to the keyword level. So you can't get full granularity here that you might want. But my message to you here today is whether you approach it with your own data warehouse, whether you leverage this GA4 cost import or use a platform like Marin, there's two things that are imperative. Bringing your data together so you can make better holistic decisions and making sure that this is an automated process, that there's not somebody on your team who's going in and manually collecting that data and pasting it into a spreadsheet every day, because that's just not something that should be happening in this day and age. The next topic here is activation. And what I'm talking about here with activation is how do we activate the AI to work on our behalf and to rethink our processes. And sometimes for me, AI, there's just an incredible number of tools out there that are targeted at us marketers, including from the different ad platforms. But sometimes they feel like a bit like this big pile of Legos. And I love Legos. I have to make sure that my kids' Legos stay out of my office because otherwise I'll end up getting distracted in a meeting and you'll see me looking down and playing with them on calls. But I feel like a lot of what we're doing is looking at this pile of Legos and building something pretty cool that, maybe looks like this. It's great. But, that's all we can do with this shiny new pile of Legos. It's kind of like a fourth grade drawing of what a car might look like. And I think we can do a lot better. The problem is we don't really have the instruction manual. And so my goal for this section is to help work with you to go from give you the instruction manual for how to use these Legos so that you can go from this to this. And this actually is a Lego set, kind of amazing. It's $200. We'll put a link in the show notes as well because I want one of these. Anyways, diving back into ad tech, as Nikhil highlighted, AI has been used by the platforms for decades to power, how our ads are being matched with the customers. But it is being brought to the surface a lot more. Two of the most recent examples, of course, are Performance Max campaigns from Google or Advantage Plus shopping from Meta. And these are campaign types that are dynamically building out the creative from assets that you provide and using their intelligence to get the right message to the right person at the right time. And, if you think about it in a way, these have killed A/B testing because there's not a winning creative anymore. There's millions of them. There's the right message for me when I'm done with work and I'm looking at my phone while I'm riding the bus home versus something that when I'm with my kids on Saturday morning. And so that dynamic interaction is really an important tool that we should all have in our toolkits to round out our programs. They're not going to take over the entirety of your program, but if you're not using some of these latest ad formats, latest campaign types, you definitely should be taking a look at it. Of course, it doesn't stop there. The ad platforms are also using AI to make, excuse me, our regular ads better. So here you see an example of some of the optimizations that they'll do on your behalf. So this is Meta. And you can see that they give you the opportunity to touch up your photos, to tweak the text, or to incorporate user-generated comments, on your ads. You do have the option. You can see the toggles there to turn these off. And Google has something similar on their campaigns. If you look in the campaign settings, you'll see this option to automatically to leverage automatically created assets. And I don't know actually whether the default is on or off. And I don't think it matters because it could change at any time. What's important is you need to think about the needs of your programs. You need to think about your brand guidelines. You need to think about your regulatory requirements and decide whether giving them the ability to make these tweaks is something that works for you or not. It's also something that you can test out. So take a look at your settings. They're kind of buried, but it's something that you should be aware of are in place. And we're moving into a world where that type of customization is going to be more common. So we need to get comfortable with it. And then the other way that this generative AI is bubbling up to the surface is part of the ad creation workflow, of course. So here's a screenshot from Google Ads, and you can see the suggestions for different headlines and descriptions for the ads. And so you can quickly add those to your workflow. And this is coming from other ads in your account. It's coming from your website. It's coming from their broader understanding. Meta, of course, has something that's very similar. You can put in some suggestions and it'll expand upon those. Funny story on this one. When I put together the screenshot for the presentation, I noticed that there was a typo in the prompt and I was going to fix it, but I actually realized it was kind of a cool thing to highlight. The AI, of course, was smart enough to fix that. And in the suggested text variations, there's no typo in place there. So it's even making up for mistakes that we can make, allowing us to work faster and sweat the details a little bit less. But we still want to look at the output, of course. Another tool that's out there is Google's AI video creator. So for video ads on YouTube. We talked a little bit about search behavior changing for consumers. And one thing that is important for us to think about when we think about search is YouTube is the #2 search engine out there. So if you're not doing a lot with video, this is a great opportunity to up-level your video skills. It's pretty cool. It pulls assets together. You can upload them. You can pull it from your website, and the resulting videos are pretty good. So check that out. You just need to go to Google Ads, create a video ad, and this is the tool generator that pops up. It's not surprising to see Microsoft has the same options given their partnership with OpenAI. So very front and center when you're going to create a new ad, it's pushing you to DALL-E to create some new images. I thought I should give this a try, and I asked it to give me some pictures of a happy marketer leaving early because they're using AI to get their job done in half the time. And here you can see with a very minimal prompt, some fun imagery. Of course, the text is a little bit off. These AI generation tools are still struggling a bit there, but at worst case, it gives me something to think about. It gives me something to share with the designer to get my vision up to the next level. And, I can imagine these turning into social posts with some help from my design team. And it really elevates what I could do as a marketer who maybe doesn't have those same design skills. Last example here is Pinterest. So they're doing something really cool here, obviously very product oriented. You take a product image and you marry it with a Pinterest board, which has kind of the moods, and it creates automated backgrounds. So this is a great example of something that I'll expand on a little bit more later in the presentation of how do we take these tools that are out there, combine them with our proprietary data, and have a 1 + 1 = 5 kind of multiplicative experience to really mangle that metaphor. So that's the ad platforms. I want to talk about AI outside the ad platforms, and specifically, what these LLMs could be doing for you, the chat GPTs of the world. One of the things that is really important to think about, and we always like to remind our audiences that just like they thrive on data, they also thrive on context. So more details and specifics about what you are looking for, so that they can be trained to respond in a certain way. So here on this slide, we give you some examples of things that you should be thinking about providing. Who are you? What is your role, or what is your audience that you're speaking to? Are you trying to make a decision? Are you looking for a certain outcome? What constraints do you want it to consider? All of that should go into the prompt that you're giving it to elevate the results that you are getting. Now, I don't want to, this is something that is important, but a lot of times it's similar across queries, and you don't want to have to be doing this every time. So want to make sure that everyone is aware of the ability to set context with custom instructions. And so what you do, if you click on this is in ChatGPT, if you click on your account in the upper right, you can click on Customize ChatGPT, and what you get is a set of custom instructions. And you'll see two boxes here. The top one, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you, is for information about who you are, your background, the context of your request. The bottom information is how would you like it to respond? So this is things about the tone, the type of output that you're expected to see. So if you put this in, it shortens each individual prompt because you've put a lot of the context in place already. So this is for individual users, but there's a way to share this across teams. And that's with custom GPTs. So if you're paying for a premium account, what you can do is create your own GPT. And the way you access this is a little bit convoluted, but in the left-hand navigation, which you see here, you can you'll see an option to explore GPTs. And above that, you see a couple of GPTs that we at Marin have created. And if you hit explore GPTs, you'll see a search. This is like an app store for GPTs, but up in the upper right, you've got that create button. And if you go ahead and click on the create button, you get a window that looks pretty similar to what we were looking at before, where you can provide this context and save it. And this is something that you can share, internally amongst your team to accelerate the work that you're doing. So this is one that Gordon on my team created with instructions that I'll read. It says, you're a digital marketer who works for an advertising agency, an advertising technology company called Marin Software. Your role is to write engaging marketing emails and design lead generation campaigns. You know the latest marketing trends and you want to incorporate these into your suggestion. You write clear, concise, effective marketing solutions while ensuring all communication is professional and aligns with our brand voice and objectives. You embody the experience of an award-winning digital marketer who's 32 years old, blah, blah, blah. So that's the context that we're providing for answering questions. Now, when we ask for help thinking about writing a blog post or working on a case study, it's going to incorporate those into the instructions. The other thing that LLMs do really well is leverage your examples. So you can put up examples of case studies for this use case, and it will model the structure and format of the case study or the example that you've given it. You also can upload other documents, and you see that at the bottom where it says help search there, that it can refer to. So in this case, we've put in our entire help library so that it can have a better understanding of our product when it's generating responses and ideas for us. You can put in your product catalog if you've got scripts that your sales team is using, if you've got brand guidelines. These are all things that can be leveraged as part of this custom GPT and make your results that much better. And there's a thousand different use cases for how you can prompts and tasks that you can write. We put together a blog post on that. It would be way outside or way too much content to cover into this. So I encourage you to check that out. But one of the big themes that we talk about here, again, is how do you bring your own data and combine it with what's in the LLM to create that multiplicative magic? And, an example of that is something that we've built, which we call our anomaly detector. And what it does is it takes your campaign data and we use AI to identify anomalous performance. Now, we all know that marketing data is really noisy. So it's not just it was up or down, but it was unexpectedly up or down. It will identify those peaks. It will identify the root cause and summarize that for you in a narrative like you see here. This is a really cool tool. The next step is, automated suggestions on remediation. So take a look. All right, we are in the home stretch, automation. Of course, one more quick story to kick us off this section. You can tell how important something is to us when it suddenly goes missing or it doesn't work as we expect it to. Anyone with an iPhone, and I think Android probably has the same thing, loves when you need a code from a text message for two-factor authentication, and you just click on this little thing at the top of your keyboard, and it copies it and pastes it in. But every once in a while, you get a message that iOS just isn't able to parse. And my reaction, at least, is like, I got to go switch over to messages. I got to select the text. I have to copy it. I have to switch back to the browser, and I hit paste. That's totally unacceptable. Well, if you think about it, it's 4 steps, but it just makes our life so much easier not having to think about doing it. And that is exactly the power of automation and why it's really important for us to not underutilize these tools that are out there to help automate your workflows. I think about 3 kind of stages or levels of automation. Most of us are probably doing a pretty good job with reporting. I beat the drum earlier about the importance of bringing all your data together, doing that automatically. So let's move past that and talk about the next two. Rules. So how do I give instructions without, too much code or complication about what should happen and letting the platform take care of the rest? Smart bidding optimization is an example of this, where you set a target and it just calculates or optimizes your campaigns to hit that target. And then there's a step beyond that, which is scripts. So this is where you can take the power of code to do almost anything you want. So just to show you what some of these tools are available, what tools are available across the different platforms. In Google, if you go to tools and then rules, not shocking, you'll see you can create a number of different types of rules, and those are generally tied to the different objects, but there's also some that are related to targeting options. And when you go create a rule, you can see it's a pretty simple setup here. What do you want the rule to apply to? What is the condition that must be met? And then what action do you take when that condition is met? This is something that can be run once. It can be run on a recurring basis. So in this example, in the screenshot, it's a daily run, but makes it easy to add rules to help take care of some of the tasks that you may be thinking about and doing on a daily basis. Meta has something similar. It's located at the top of any of the grids. So you can see this box on the right where you can select rules, you hit manage rules, and you get a window that looks structurally very similar to the Google page. Again, condition, the scope, the condition, the action that you take. Google is also one of the platforms that offers scripts. And so you can go in and you can write JavaScript code to extend the platform. It has access to data, it can make changes to the account, and it can integrate with external data sources. Now, this is something that might be a little bit intimidating to the less technical side of the audience. I'm not a big programmer, but with ChatGPT, with these LLMs, you can get a lot farther than you would think, especially if you start with some of the resources that are out there. So we've compiled a list of a few of the different libraries that bring these scripts together. And we'll link those in our presentation. All right, so reporting, rules, scripts. This is a quick summary of what's offered by each of the platforms. With Google and Meta being the most, and Microsoft Ads being the most sophisticated. Of course, all the publishers offer an API for reporting and campaign management. Big brands who are interested in full control will often think about building out their own solutions. But I would really, really encourage you, if you are starting to go down that path, take a look at a solution that gives you reporting, rules, scripts, and a unified API, because keeping up with all the changes to the publisher's APIs is a very painful process. And we know this because that's what we do. So if you want to be insulated from that, that's where Marin comes into play. All right, last but not least, forecasting. Over the last few years, we've seen huge adoption of the publisher optimization tools, Google Smart Bidding, as an example. But if you zoom out past the individual publisher level, almost everyone that we talk with is managing their planning, their allocation, their cross-channel optimization with some variation of a complicated spreadsheet that looks like this. And we think that's a problem. There's a few reasons. Fragmentation, forecasting, frequency. We talked about the importance of bringing your data together, so we've solved that. But when you're working in sheets, you're probably using an oversimplistic, backwards-looking forecast to make your plan. So I'm a third of the way through the month. Let me gross that up to the remainder of the month to see how much I'm going to spend. You're also probably not doing this nearly as often as you should, maybe once a quarter or monthly at most. And that's far too infrequent in a world that moves as fast as we do. So let's talk a little bit about how you should be thinking about forecasting and why it matters. So what matters, how you should be thinking about this, is not how the campaign is performed in the past, but what is the opportunity, and most importantly, the marginal opportunity as you look forward and you adjust your spend levels. What do I mean by marginal opportunity? Well, every campaign has some curve, auction curve, that shows at different levels of spend, what are you going to get in return? And you can see two examples of those curves. So we've got two programs here. It doesn't matter. They could be different campaigns. They could be different channels. The concept is the same. The marginal return is essentially the slope of the curve where you are today, which is represented by those dots. Now, because the blue auction curve is steeper than the pink, if we can shift more budget there and take away from the pink without changing our overall level of spend, we will increase the number of conversions. Yes, we're going to give up a little bit for reducing budget on the pink, but that's more than offset by the increasing conversions on the blue. And so this is a relatively easy concept to grasp. The challenge, of course, is having those forecasts and then having the algorithm that is going to work across all of the campaigns, across those 30 different ad platforms that we've been talking about since the beginning. And that's something that just isn't going to be feasible to be done from a spreadsheet. The second aspect of this is handling seasonality. You've got day of week, day of month, day of year patterns. You've got special events and promotion. You've got external events that will affect your volume. And so all these things, to really have a good forecast about where your money should be going, are going to be something that you need to factor in. So where can we get these better forecasts? Well, some of the publishers offer them. Google, you can get some data via the API. Meta has some of this via the API as well. Google in their UI has this performance planner tool where you get those same kind of curves of, as I vary my levels of spend, what am I going to get in return? You see the marginal return decreasing, the curve flattening out, because eventually you're going to maximize the number of impressions that you have, that you're going to maximize the reach into that audience, and you're not going to get anything more even if you increase your budget. But while this is a cool tool, it of course only works for Google. It's also not linked directly to their bidding, and it doesn't include campaigns that don't have a whole lot of history associated with it. One of the other tools that have been increasingly talked about recently, we hear questions asking about incrementality and media mix modeling. Well, let's dig into those. So incrementality, that's an approach that focuses on your total sales. So all these issues around measurement decreasing doesn't really matter, because what you do is you look at your total sales for a test group versus a control group. The test group, you would make a change. You would turn off your branded keywords on Google. You would launch a TikTok ad, whatever the change might be. And then you just compare the incremental spend that test group is driving relative to the control group. And that shows you the value of that change that you've made. Super good, super useful. It addresses the data loss issues because you're focused on total sales, which is something that you know. The problem is this doesn't scale. You can't do this across every single channel, across every single platform. The other one that's out there is marketing mix modeling, MMM. This is a big top-down exercise where you spend months pulling together all of your data, and your data scientists then spend months creating a model that help you understand the contribution of each part of your marketing program. And it's called marketing, not media mix, for a lot of people, because it can bring in external factors. It's often done at the ad platform level. But the big thing here is these are super expensive, super time consuming. And while they can be great and they can provide good direction, we think there's something that's much more tangible and tactical. We don't want to let perfect be the enemy of great. And so we're pioneering approach with our Ascend product that we like to think of as tactical media mix modeling. And what that looks like is we want to solve that spend allocation problem that you're trying to do with that spreadsheet that we looked at with AI-driven forecasting that understands the shape of each campaign's auction curve, does the optimization across it, and delivers better returns on your advertising investment. So we're moving the spend allocation beyond spreadsheet into a fully automated solution that gives you a dashboard of how you're performing against the plan, and then automatically adjusts the budgets, the campaign targets, and if needed, the creative or keyword level bids across all of the different ad platforms that we support. If you're an agency, no more worrying about credits for over or underspending. So what we're looking at here is a couple of charts of what you get with this approach. On the left, you see budget, and you'll note the left column is status quo. The right column is with our recommended allocation. And what you'll see is there's no change in the overall level of spend. We're just doing a reallocation. But at the same level of spend, what you're spending today, you're going to get significantly better results. Typically, 20% lift in conversions slash revenue. We've got a ton. Excuse me. We've got a ton of different examples of how we've helped companies deliver this kind of lift in their performance. So as I said before, our goal is to help you sell more with less effort. Come talk to us if you're looking for a better return on your precision media investment. So today we spent time talking about a few different areas with tactical tips on each, from building the right data foundation, which we offer a range of solutions to address all of these different approaches. So Connect for that data foundation, Ascend for automating your spend allocation and maximizing the return on that investment, and One, which helps with the full picture, including all of the campaign automation. We do this across a range of publishers to try and solve that problem that Nikhil said at the outset of managing this increasingly fragmented world. With that, let me wrap for today. I hope that we've given you a few threads to pull on. To make it easy, we've compiled all these references that I've gone throughout the day at the page shown here on the right. You can take a picture of this QR code or hit that URL directly. On that page, you'll also find a video tour of Marin and a link to schedule time with one of our experts. We love talking about this stuff, so please reach out to myself or Nikhil directly if you have any questions, reactions, suggestion on what you've seen today. Nikhil, wherever you are, thanks again, and we hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks so much.